Well, the BBC isn't the only institution facing allegations about Jimmy Savile. Our organisations that cared for some of the most vulnerable people in society. At Broadmoor, Britain's high-security psychiatric hospital, he got his own set of keys. One former patient says the presenter was able to do exactly as he liked.
He started just coming in and plonking himself down and watching Top of the Pops with us on Lancaster Ward 1, which is where the incident happened. He put his hand straight up my nightdress. Unfortunately, I could do nothing. I couldn't stop him.
He had everyone under his spell.
This whole is he, isn't he line, basically.
Yes. How do they know whether I am or not? How does anybody know whether I am? Nobody knows whether I am.
Lisa Brooks says she was by Savile on BBC premises when she was 9. When she took her claims about the star to police 10 years later, she says they wouldn't investigate.
Doctor, look at the screen. It's monstrous.
It's revolting.
Jimmy Savile is much more frightening than Sontarans. Much more. I will leave it at that.
Hospitals have rules with patients and things like that. Well, because I'm dyslexic when I want to be, I don't understand rules.
Everybody knew what the badge, everyone wanted the badge. He approached me, the phrase, "Would you like to earn your badge?" was used later. Another man entered the room, and if it could have got more horrifying, it did.
You used to be a wrestler, didn't you?
I still am. I'm feared in every girls' school in this country.
Let me tell you, Sigmar, the cameraman taking my picture now, when he's not actually taking pictures for transmission, he focuses on the lady's legs and he has a private view all of his own. Isn't that naughty? And I'm going to ring it any time any of these girls say or do anything naughty. You shouldn't have looked at me like that.
I am often tempted. In fact, my case comes up next Thursday.
I want justice, and I'm fed up with people looking at me like I'm dirty and disgusting because of what that man did to me.
Don't forget, ladies, that I'm available most weekends for home visits.
I'm the victim they have to pay, and the police should have done their job.
This is my boyfriend.
Oh, so she said it, you see. Oh, you did well there.
Today's documentary, once again, is dealing with an extremely sensitive and disturbing topic, and that is child and potentially the murder of innocents. I want to issue you guys a viewer discretion warning because we're going to be talking about some graphic and dark history in today's episode. We don't do these episodes to try and exploit stories or find things that are just crazy and disturbing to shock viewers. This is a topic that I personally would live and die for if it meant that we were able to help kids or help raise awareness around these crimes. This is a deeply personal topic, and these investigations I really genuinely care about so much, so deeply in my heart. On today's video, we're going to be investigating the Jimmy Savile story. Jimmy Savile was a knighted by the Queen entertainer from England who would go on to become the most notorious in British history. On the surface, Jimmy Savile was a lovable, likable character, a mainstay in British entertainment and television. He hosted a very famous, very popular children's program. He volunteered his time at hospitals. He raised millions of pounds for charity. He, according to many, was a stand-up guy, an all-around great dude. But, you know, the rumors about Jimmy and the allegations started swirling years before his death. This was nothing new. But after he died, the story broke. And after one article was published, and then a series was published, people started coming out of the woodwork claiming that Jimmy Savile had molested them when they were younger. It began to snowball. First it was 10 victims, then it was 23, then it turned into 100, then it turned into upwards of 400, making him arguably the most prolific in British history. I mean, it's just crazy to think that he was one of the most famous Brits on Earth at the time of his death. In today's video, we're going to be visiting Jimmy Savile's old home. It's completely abandoned. It's very, very scary. It's out in the Scottish Highlands. It just looks like a haunted mansion. You're going to see that in a little bit. It's truly a very dark place. Before we go out there, I wanted to sit down and speak about Jimmy Savile so that you guys understand a little bit more about who he was, what he did, and also the institutional cover-up which was enacted not only by the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, but also the British government. Jimmy Savile was enabled by everyone around him, and he was protected. People knew what he was doing. There were reports, there were police reports, there were victims, but no one did anything. No one wanted to listen to these kids. That rabbit hole runs extremely deep. Let's get into it.
This whole is he, isn't he line, basically.
Yes. How do they know whether I am or not? How does anybody know whether I am? Nobody knows whether I am.
On the outside, Jimmy Savile looked like an amazing, unique individual who devoted his entire life to his entertaining work and helping others. He was known for fundraising and supporting different charities and hospitals, and was considered to be a prodigious philanthropist. In 1971, Jimmy Savile was awarded the OBE, which is the Order of the British Empire, a British order of chivalry that rewards contributions to the arts and sciences, work with charity, and public service. In the UK, it is a great honor to be awarded with one of these orders. And in 1990, Jimmy Savile was knighted by the Queen of England and Pope John Paul II for his charitable work after Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher publicly and privately lobbied for him to receive knighthood. This changed his name to Sir James Savile. Jimmy was more than just a face on television. He was also connected to politicians, police, and members of parliament for decades before his death. He was involved in churches and worked at numerous hospitals around the UK as a part of his charity work. Everybody loved Jimmy Savile. But who was he really? Well, in 2007, Jimmy was almost exposed when Surrey police were contacted by a woman who said she witnessed an incident at the Duncroft School 30 years prior. 3 other women who were interviewed independently ended up corroborating that woman's allegations. But when he was called in for a police interview in 2009, obviously, Jimmy Savile denied all of the allegations and threatened to sue the woman. The group of women were hesitant to go to trial, and the prosecutors ended up dropping the case a few weeks later. Of course, most people who caught wind of this refused to believe that Jimmy was capable of such inappropriate conduct, but they were in for a rude awakening only a few years later. After Jimmy Savile died right after his 85th birthday in 2011, his secrets began to emerge from the dark. A documentary presented by English investigative reporter Mark Williams Thomas was broadcast a year after Jimmy's death on October 3rd, 2012. In the documentary, several women stated that they were by Jimmy Savile when they were teenagers, and this encouraged other victims to come forward. Within a week, allegations had been made against Jimmy Savile to 13 different British police forces, which led to investigations of the BBC and the National Health Service, 2 organizations that had worked closely with Jimmy. In all, it has been reported that Jimmy Savile was most likely responsible for around 400 people over a 54-year span. 400 people in 54 years. In 2024, Netflix released a 2-part documentary called Jimmy Savile, a British horror story, which revealed everything from Jimmy's rise to fame, his reputation after death, and the network of power behind him while he was alive. In that documentary, several victims talked about their experiences with Jimmy. In 2011, Karen Ward wrote about the she had suffered at the hands of Savile on Friends Reunited, which was a portfolio of social networking websites at the time. Now, Ward stated that Jimmy used to bribe her in the 1970s, promising her that he would allow her and her friends to be on his TV show in exchange for feeling pressured. Jimmy took the woman to his car, and another woman, Sam Brown, came forward and stated that Jimmy Savile had her several times when she was a minor attending church services at the Mandeville Chapel. Jimmy regularly worked with charities throughout his life and was especially intertwined with the Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, the Duncroft School, and the Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Jimmy didn't just raise money for them, he also put in some hours in person, helping hospital attendants tend to the sick. Broadmoor staff even gave Jimmy Savile his own room to stay in when he visited their campus, and at other hospitals, Jimmy kept his camper van in the parking lot. I guess back then it didn't seem that odd for Jimmy to be doing all of that, but looking back and knowing what we know now, we now know that there were a lot of terrible things that took place in that camper van. Interestingly, Jimmy also had special privileges in the places that he volunteered at and was given access to restricted parts of certain hospitals. And unfortunately, Jimmy used this special treatment and this special access to his advantage. His and crimes took place in hospital wards, corridors, offices, parking lots, and more. At Broadmoor, a psychiatric hospital in Crowthorne, England, where he frequently worked, Jimmy was caught watching female staff and patients undress. Why didn't anyone say something, though? He was caught many times by staff, other volunteers, people that were just there at the hospitals, and no one really said anything or raised any fuss. Well, in 1988, the senior civil servant in charge of mental health within the Department of Health and Social Security, a man named Cliff Graham, had formed a close working relationship with Jimmy Savile. He thought of him as, quote, a man of considerable understanding, insight, and intelligence, end quote. Cliff even accompanied Jimmy to Buckingham Palace when Jimmy's knighthood was granted. Cliff eventually appointed Jimmy to oversee a task force, effectively running the hospital. Jimmy was then given the formal role as chair of the hospital advisory committee, and at that point, he had access to anybody in any place on the campus grounds. He had access to any child he could want access to. He had access to places of the building like the morgue. And yeah, we're going to talk about all that in a second. This decision was reported to Edwina Curry, the Minister for Mental Health Issues at the time. Curry said that the task force seemed like a good idea, since Jimmy Savile promised to confront the Prison Officer Association about their unfair working practices. She thought that this blackmail approach to the POA was a pretty classy piece of operation. During a press release, she stated that Jimmy Savile was an amazing man who has my full confidence. She claimed that most of the revelations regarding Jimmy's were completely new to her, and that his behavior had been completely hidden at the time. But Labour member of the Parliament, Tom Watson, has openly questioned Curry and other ministers about the access that they granted to Jimmy Savile, who had senior political connections at the time, including, of course, a close friendship with a Margaret Thatcher. Jimmy also had a close relationship with Ken Clarke, the health secretary at the time. Now, according to Tom Watson, that Labour member of the Parliament, Edwina Curry's actions and her special treatment that she granted Jimmy Savile, quote, allowed a dangerous, predatory, unfettered access to some of the most vulnerable people in the country, end quote. Personally, I don't see how Jimmy Savile, who wasn't a medical professional in any sense, could have had a formal role overseeing an entire hospital and choosing who to hire for any other reason than because of his influence and his background connections that weren't innocent, to say the least. Now, as you can tell, right back then, the web was starting to form. Jimmy was given access to all these buildings where, like I said, he could immediately get access to children. He could walk into the children's ward at any time of day or night. He could request time alone with any child. He could take children out of their rooms. He could corner workers, corner nurses, corner staff. He could get the keys to any old abandoned part of the hospital grounds that he's so pleased to get keys for. And this was all just handed to him on a silver platter. Investigators found that Jimmy Savile's role of overseeing that hospital task force enabled him to use his influence to appoint a close associate, a good friend of his, as the general manager of Broadmoor for the next 8 years, Alan Franey. Now, Alan was inexperienced for this position, but he was a friend of Jimmy's, and unsurprisingly, his intentions were also incredibly questionable. During that time, a female nurse who was working at the hospital was reported to have had a relationship with a female patient, and she was fired for unprofessional conduct. After her termination appeal was denied, she began a legal case threatening to expose negative conduct that was happening amongst the hospital's management. The documents that were showed at the time were believed to have included allegations about Alan Franey's personal conduct. Remember, Alan is one of Jimmy's best friends, and Jimmy got him that job. Disturbing allegations involving herself, the nurse, and other staff members. Now, she eventually dropped that case, and all documentation of that lawsuit was destroyed. It's never been found or seen again to this day. And even to this very day, members of the Department of Health have stated to the public that they're suspicious of what happened with this entire lawsuit and these allegations. Members of the Department of Health actually believe that there may have been a payoff at some point. Somebody paid this nurse to drop the suit and fade into oblivion. And obviously all the documentation and the allegations that had been written down were destroyed and sent to the void with her. So Jimmy Savile, after being appointed to that new role, used that role to enhance the impression that he was close to government ministers and Department of Health officials, therefore making it seem like Jimmy Savile was in some sort of a position of authority. And like many other predators before and after him, Jimmy was using this power and influence to get away with decades of crimes. There were rumors of Jimmy Savile's inappropriate behavior towards young women during his time at Broadmoor, but nothing ever came from it. Were all these higher-ups protecting each other? That's a good question. Chris Patton, the chairman of the BBC Trust, wrote, quote, "The BBC's reputation is on the line. The BBC risks squandering public trust because one of its stars over 3 decades was apparently a criminal, and because others, BBC employees and hangers-on, may also have been involved." End quote. Even today, the chairman is stating that Jimmy Savile was apparently a criminal. There aren't any apparent crimes. We need to make that very, very apparent and obvious and firm. There are hundreds of victims who have made the same allegations against Jimmy Savile, who have spent their entire lives absolutely terrified to come forward and tell the world about the horrors that they experienced at the hands of one of Britain's most beloved men. In the Netflix documentary about Jimmy Savile, many brave survivors told their stories, and it's gut-wrenching. One woman in particular told a story about going to church with Jimmy Savile when she was only 11 years old. Every week, Jimmy would take her into the church and her under the desks and in empty rooms. It got so bad that this young girl would make sure to wear several layers of underwear and even tampons before she went to church, even though she hadn't hit puberty yet, because she knew what was going to happen to her when she got there and she was trying to prevent it. It's incredibly sad and haunting, and she was only one of the hundreds of victims. Like I said before, there are dozens, hundreds more with similar stories. The BBC set up an independent investigation in 2012 into the corporation's culture and practices during the years that Jimmy Savile worked there. It also launched its own separate inquiry into why its managers dropped an investigation into the allegations against Jimmy Savile years prior. When asked why no action had been taken against Jimmy Savile for almost 50 years, the police commissioner said people had relied too much on Savile's reputation and his word that he hadn't done anything. Additionally, it was later revealed that police investigations at that time lacked the specialist skills, knowledge, and collaborative approach that was needed to bust a criminal like Jimmy Savile. But that's a bit contrary to what's known now. You see, many previous employees of the BBC have gone on the record and stated that for years they knew the rumors surrounding Jimmy Savile. Years before he was dead, they knew that he had been victimizing innocent kids across the United Kingdom. The former BBC governor for Wales and former UK chairman of BBC's Children in Need, a man named Sir Roger Jones, has also gone on the record and stated that he had had suspicions about Jimmy Savile for years. He said, quote, "I think we all recognized he was a pretty creepy sort of character," end quote. Yet no one ever did anything. So you had all these people that were surrounding Jimmy Savile, people noticing that he's creepy, saying he was a creepy character, saying obviously he behaves inappropriate with children. They were openly stating this and they all knew it, yet no one did anything. It should be stated also here that Sir Roger Jones eventually decided that he was no longer going to let Jimmy Savile onto the set of Children in Need, but he also failed to tell management why he made this decision and about the ban because he lacked any hard evidence against Jimmy. He just said, "Jimmy, you're no longer welcome here," but he didn't tell anybody above him about why he wasn't welcome. After Jimmy's death in 2011, producer Myron Jones produced an expose documentary which helped start that investigation into Jimmy Savile. Myron first discovered accusations against Jimmy Savile that dated all the way back to the 1970s. You see, at the time, his aunt ran an institution called the Duncroft School in Middlesex. It was for troubled teen girls who had committed serious crimes. The place was something between a prison and a school, a place that would supposedly help these kids finish their studies and grow into responsible adults. Myron always noticed that Jimmy Savile would show up at Duncroft all the time. He said he always thought it was weird. Why was Jimmy there to hang out with these troubled teenage girls? Not only that, according to Myron, Jimmy was often seen leaving the campus with some of the schoolgirls in the back of his Rolls Royce. And when Myron wanted to air his investigation into Jimmy Savile on the BBC, they straight up refused. They told him, "No way, we will not air this, we will not play this, we will not show this." Some of the main points discovered during that inquiry into the BBC's operations while Jimmy Savile was there are as follows. During that time, the BBC was a place ripe with discrimination, and harassment. There were, quote, serious failings in the BBC's culture and systems of communication, management, and investigation. And had these failures been addressed at the time, Jimmy Savile's activities could have been stopped. But no complaints were made about Jimmy Savile to the BBC's duty office, as would be the appropriate procedure, although there were 8 different occasions on which complaints were made in other ways. The first complaint was made in the late 1960s and concerned Jimmy Savile inappropriately kissing a member of staff in Manchester. Some members of the BBC staff were aware of Jimmy Savile's inappropriate conduct in connection with his work for the BBC, but like I said before, there was no evidence that any senior member of staff was aware of Jimmy's conduct. The earliest known incident was the of a 13-year-old girl at Lima Grove Studios in the year 1959, and the very last known incident was in 2006 at the last recording of Jimmy's program, Top of the Pops. Investigator Dame Janet Smith had her own inquiry into Jimmy Savile and the BBC and discovered that Jimmy would commit whenever and wherever the opportunity arose. She states that incidents took place basically in every single one of BBC's premises at which he worked. Jimmy's usual tactics with young girls, and sometimes boys, was to by first inviting them to watch him perform on set, then later on making advances towards them in his dressing room afterwards. One junior employee stated that she was once told to keep her mouth shut because Jimmy was a VIP. So, the police called the investigation into Jimmy Savile's crimes Operation Yewtree. The Metro Police worked with the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty of Children, otherwise known as NSPCC, in this investigation. Operation Yewtree, led by Detective Chief Inspector Michael Orchard, started in 2012 and led the police to a list of other perpetrators and posited that Jimmy Savile may have just been the center of a wider predator ring. It also raised questions about whether the BBC had ignored these crimes it suspected over several decades. Operation Yewtree found that the majority of the victims of this organized ring were aged 13 to 16, and the crimes were on a national scale. Those involved in the operation described it as a watershed moment for investigations and a landmark investigation. The operation followed 3 strands: allegations against Jimmy Savile, allegations against Jimmy Savile and others, and allegations that just involved other predators in general. At the end of 2012, the investigation was completed, and the report was released in January 2013, called Giving Victims a Voice. In May 2013, the New York Times reported that at least 69 police officers and staff members were involved in the operation, and that many of the suspects were celebrities. No surprise there. It resulted in the arrests of 18 TV presenters, comedians, and other show business associates. One of them being BBC children's presenter Rolf Harris, who was charged for indecent dating back decades, with victims as young as 8 years old. An investigation into British singer Cliff Richard and English comedian and actor Jimmy Tarbuck were also opened, but never resulted in charges. Going back to Giving Victims a Voice, here's some information that was revealed in that report. So, Jimmy Savile offended at 13 hospitals, including the Broadmoor High Security Psychiatric Hospital, the St. James Leeds Hospital, the High Royd Psychiatric Hospital, the Dewsbury Hospital, the Wycombe General Hospital, the Great Ormond Street Hospital in 1971, the Ashworth Hospital, the Exeter Hospital, the Royal Portsmouth Hospital, the St. Catherine's Hospital in Birkenhead, and the Saxondale Mental Health Hospital. A total of 14 offenses were recorded in relation to schools. Jimmy Savile's youngest victim was an 8-year-old boy, and the oldest was a 47-year-old woman. The earliest allegation is from 1955 in Manchester, and the last 2009. Offenses were carried out at the BBC between 1965 and 2006, and peak offending took place between 1966 and 1976. According to this report, Jimmy Savile was just roaming around the United Kingdom, committing all these crimes for most of his life, and not a thing was done until he died. He probably felt like he was invincible, and sadly, he was. The Giving Victims a Voice report concluded that there was no real evidence to suggest that Jimmy Savile operated a predator ring, but investigations continued regarding the possibility of him being a member of an information network. Many of the male and female victims retained lawyers when all of this came out. According to their lawyers, many of the victims claimed that an organized predator ring had existed at the BBC during the time Jimmy Savile was there. According to one of the lead lawyers involved in the cases, Alicia Alina, Tasmania, she stated that there seemed to have been a number of people who were involved in this whole thing other than Jimmy Savile. She said she couldn't reveal specific names of celebrities, but it wasn't just limited to random people. Lawmaker Tom Watson also stated that a senior aide to a former prime minister might have been involved in the suspected predator ring. Given his influence throughout the UK and connections with the government, it's no surprise at all that Jimmy Savile was likely involved in something bigger than just himself. Next, we're going to talk about some more individuals involved with Jimmy Savile and the BBC and the likelihood that a predator ring existed in plain sight. First of all, we have Gary Glitter. During the investigation into Jimmy Savile, another face of the BBC was revealed, Paul Gadd, famously known as Gary Glitter. Now, Gary Glitter is a former English singer who was the most popular during the 70s and 80s. You definitely know some of Gary Glitter's music. One of his songs was infamously used in the 2019 Joker film, and there was huge backlash because they used that song after all this stuff had happened. But Gary Glitter's career ended in 1999 after he was convicted of downloading, which I'm going to refer to as CP throughout the rest of this video. But first, let's go through Gary's criminal history. In the 1970s, he was acquitted of a charge of sexual activity with an underage girl. In 1997, he was arrested for downloading thousands of CP images and videos. He later faced criminal charges and deportation from several countries in connection with actual and suspected child. In 2002, Gary Glitter was deported from Cambodia on suspected child charges, and he then settled in Vietnam. In 2006, he was convicted of obscene acts in Vietnam. After serving his sentence, Glitter was deported to the United Kingdom and was placed on the register for life. After the Jimmy Savile scandal, Gary Glitter was arrested again in 2012 as a part of Operation Yewtree. He was released on bail, and in 2014, he was charged with historical child. In 2015, he was found guilty of 1 count of attempted, 1 count of unlawful with a girl under 13, and 4 counts of indecent. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison. He was then released in February 2023 after serving half of his sentence in prison, but sent back a month later after breaching the conditions of his release. His parole was denied in February 2024. Obviously, I've talked about this before on my TikTok, Gary Glitter has some major issues, and he's a hardcore. Shortly after Gary's parole was denied, a new TV documentary revealed something troubling for the BBC. In 1993, Gary Glitter was accused of a 14-year-old girl. But still, 1 year later, he was offered the starring role in BBC's Children in Need telethon. Gary Glitter and Jimmy Savile worked there at the same time and actually became friends. One eyewitness, Karen Ward, claimed that she once saw Gary Glitter having relations with a teenage girl inside of Jimmy Savile's dressing room at the BBC. Was this possibly one of the girls seen in the back of Jimmy's fancy car? Why was there an unaccompanied minor there to begin with, and why didn't anyone question this? Obviously, there's so much to talk about with Gary Glitter and how he's somehow beaten so many charges and gotten out of prison so many times, but we need to press on. Chris Denning was an English radio presenter who was the first announcer heard on BBC Two, a British news show, when it started in 1964. Only a few years before, in 1959, Chris Denning had been jailed in Germany for distributing images. This was only the beginning. In 1974, Chris was convicted of gross indecency and indecent, but wasn't sentenced to prison. In 1985, he was sent to prison for gross indecency with a child, and 3 years later, sent back for indecent on a 13-year-old boy and possession of indecent photos, or CP images. In 1996, Chris was sent to prison for 10 weeks for publishing more indecent photos. And 4 years later, in 2000, Chris was on trial and convicted of 7 boys under the age of 15. He was released in 2001. Bizarre, right? He had victimized 7 children, and he was released after 1 year. Only 1 year served in prison for victimizing 7 underage boys. In 2014, Chris was sent to prison for 13 years over this. of 14 minor boys. The victimization of one of these boys allegedly took place in the home of Jimmy Savile. Chris Denning would take the young boys to watch The Top of the Pops, hosted by Jimmy Savile, and would introduce them to celebrities, including Jimmy Savile. This is typical behavior of predators, especially ones that are involved in these networks. They children and bribe them with special things or trips, special things like attending a popular show like The Top of the Pops and meeting stars. The boys said they were frequently taken to parties that were full of celebrities. Although some of the crimes against these boys happened in Jimmy Savile's own home, it was claimed that he wasn't even involved. But that statement just doesn't make sense to me. But it goes to show that that's the kind of power that a guy like Jimmy Savile had over everyone. Chris Denning, along with other well-known people, was definitely a part of a child's group based around a nightclub called the Walton Hop in England. Other people that frequented that joint included Tom Patton, Scottish manager of the pop rock band Bay City Rollers, and singer-songwriter Jonathan King. Tam Patton was eventually discovered to be running a predator ring, and Jonathan King was associated with, you guessed it, Jimmy Savile. But like Jimmy Savile, the complaints against Tam Patton were frequently ignored until they became too loud. Jonathan King is an English singer, songwriter, and record producer. He was involved with all these guys we've talked about, and apparently he used his fame to lure and young boys. In 2001, Jonathan was sent to prison for 7 years for 5 teenaged boys, but he continues to claim his innocence to this day. He also publicly claims that Jimmy Savile was completely innocent and that all of his victims are actually his accusers. He stated, quote, "The crimes never happened. At least miscarriages of justice in cases of murder have bodies to show that crimes did take place," end quote. Thankfully though, the public, normal people like you and I, don't buy it. UK articles refer to Jonathan King and others as disgraced perverts, and that's exactly what they are. Jonathan King was friends with Jimmy Savile and even appeared on his show, Top of the Pops, in 1980. In 2015, the BBC's governing body rejected a complaint that said that they shouldn't have rebroadcast the episode with King since he was subsequently convicted of against kids. According to the BBC, King's episode wasn't inappropriate and did not break editorial guidelines, despite the fact that they apparently make these decisions on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the potential sensitivity surrounding the person. I'd say that the crimes Jonathan King committed were extremely sensitive and vile in nature, but I guess that's just me. Rolf Harris. Rolf Harris was an Australian musician, TV personality, painter, and actor. He was most famous for his British children's television shows, and he was loved by the public. Rolf, too, was associated with Jimmy Savile and held a slot on a BBC show in 1952, which launched his career. Rolf was arrested during Operation Yewtree for and went on trial in 2014, where he was subsequently convicted and sentenced to 5 years and 9 months in prison. He was released early though, sadly, in 2017, and one of his convictions, involving an 8-year-old girl, was overturned. One of Rolf's victims was a friend of his daughter, who claimed she was by Rolf between the ages of 13 and 19. Rolf claimed their relationship was mutual, and his friends and family supported him throughout the entire trial. Ironically, Rolf Harris actually created a video in 1985 called "Kids Can Say No," a child safety video which told children about how they could avoid. The film starts eerily with Rolf singing a song with a group of children that says, "My body's nobody's body but mine. You run your own body, let me run mine." It's obvious, knowing what we know now, that he was trying to hide in plain sight. In the mid-1970s, Jimmy Savile gave Rolf Harris a tour of Broadmoor Hospital, the hospital we discussed earlier that Jimmy Savile somehow became in charge of. There were reports that emerged at the time that Jimmy Savile showed Rolf around the rooms when the girls were undressing and getting ready for bed. One of the former patients stated that it was strange that Rolf Harris arrived at the same time that they were getting ready for bed late at night, and believed that he had showed up at that exact time deliberately. Again, more typical behavior of a sadistic. Bring your other predator friends around and give them access to what you have access to. There's no reason why Jimmy Savile would randomly give Rolf Harris a tour of the Broadmoor Hospital, especially when he knew that the young girls would be getting undressed in the hallways for bedtime. It's bizarre. There's also Stuart Hall. Stuart is a former English broadcaster with the BBC who was most known for his show called It's a Knockout. The investigations into Jimmy Savile also led investigators to Stuart Hall, and a separate investigation was then opened. In 2013, Stuart admitted that he had 13 different girls and was sentenced to, drumroll please, 15 months in prison for 14 counts of indecent. That's almost a full month per every victim. That's crazy. That's just insane. Stewart's sentence was later doubled to a whopping 30 months, thanks to the Attorney General arguing that his sentence was unduly lenient. I obviously still think that 30 months is incredibly lenient. I think 13 young girls should land you in prison for life, if not something more extreme, but I'm glad that someone at least spoke up. According to former BBC employees, BBC managers turned a blind eye to Stuart Hall frequently luring young girls into his dressing room. Stuart apparently had a special room set aside for this, and he would often jokingly refer to the girls to others as his nieces. Gary Clark, former BBC studio worker, stated that managers definitely knew what Stuart was doing, and that, quote, Stuart could do what Stuart could do, end quote. Not only were Jimmy Savile and Stuart Hall both high profilers with the BBC, they both had very similar personalities. They liked to young girls, and they liked to use their fame to their advantage. Because of their status, it seems that the BBC willingly did nothing. They didn't want to lose any of their beloved stars who were bringing in viewers, advertising money, and cultural significance. There's also Dave Lee Travis. Dave Lee Travis is a former English DJ and TV presenter. Like the others, he was one of the BBC's leading presenters during the 1970s and 80s. He was also a frequent presenter on Jimmy Savile's show, Top of the Pops. In 2012, he was arrested as a result of Operation Yewtree. In 2014, he was found not guilty on 12 of the counts and found guilty on retrial a year later and given a sentence of, drumroll please, 3 months in prison. Dave Lee Travis claimed that he knew that Jimmy Savile liked young girls while they worked together, but apparently he didn't think that any of the girls that he ever saw around Jimmy were underage. When asked about their relationship, Dave claims that he only knew Jimmy as a colleague and nothing more. I find this highly unlikely, given the two's similar behaviors and crimes. Another predator working for the same broadcasting network at the same time as Jimmy Savile, he's even on Jimmy Savile's show. It's highly unlikely to me that these guys had nothing to do with each other. There's also Ray Tarrant. Ray was a former chauffeur and assistant of Jimmy Savile that was convicted in 2014 for an indecent. Before this, Ray was found guilty of having with a 15-year-old girl. Overall, Ray was accused of more than 30 offenses and crimes, including 18 charges, some dating back to the 1960s. One of the charges related to an offense that was committed by Ray and Jimmy Savile together at the same time. Ray denied everything, yet he couldn't deny that he and Jimmy Savile had spent decades together, spending almost every single day together riding in the same vehicle. Ray was also previously a DJ and a close friend off camera of Jimmy Savile. They even shared a flat together in the 1960s and were reportedly together all the time after they met when Ray won Jimmy's singing contest at the Palace Theatre in Manchester. But investigators discovered graffiti dating back to the 1960s and 70s behind the wallpaper of Ray's former apartment. The names, telephone numbers, and other information confirmed the testimony given by the victims at his trial and contradicted the fact that Ray claimed to have never known any of the victims. On December 14, 2014, Ray was sentenced to 25 years in prison. A lawyer of 169 of Jimmy Savile's victims claimed that Ray's conviction represented, quote, the closest the victims of Jimmy Savile will get to a conviction against their attacker, end quote. Ray died in prison on May 5th, 2021. Speaking of drivers though, one of Jimmy Savile's victims, a woman named Georgina Martin, stated that she was frequently driven to his home by several different drivers, one of which she says she was pimped out to. There are so many victim accounts and behaviors that lead to a predator ring, but the BBC has refused to ever admit to it. To this day, they won't admit that there was organized happening behind the scenes at the BBC. They just refuse to admit to it. Is that because they're technically a government agency and there's still a cover-up going on? No way, they would never do that, would they? So as you can see here, Jimmy Savile, with the BBC, was running this absolutely massive predator ring. And these are just the people that we know. These are the famous names. We're not even getting into the everyday people, the royal people, the elite people in, English society, the businessmen, the rich, those who also benefited from this mechanized system of victimization that we just don't know about. When you have these parties and these events, you're never going to get a full roster of who all was there, who paid to be there, and who wanted to be there, whose influence earned them a position in that room. But as with every predator ring, there are a number of suspicious deaths connected to this whole thing, and we have to get into this. One of the most troubling deaths that has ever haunted England is that of Jill Dando. Jill was known all across England, all across the UK, really. She was a household name and a very recognizable figure. She hosted Crime Watch. It was an incredibly popular program, dedicated to crimes solved and unsolved. But in 1999, Jill Dando was at close range outside of her home in Fulham, London. A local man named Barry George was eventually convicted and imprisoned for the murder, but after 8 years in prison, he was acquitted after a retrial. To this day, no other suspect has been charged with Jill Dando's, and the case officially remains unsolved. At the time of Jill Dando's death, the trials of Gary Glitter and Chris Denning were underway. Additionally, a former friend and colleague of Jill's from the BBC claimed that Jill had tried to get the BBC bosses to investigate an alleged predator ring that existed within their corporation that she had gathered evidence on. She had handed over her files, all the data she had gathered, all the incriminating materials that she had meticulously researched and collected, and according to the theory, this prompted a revenge attack. But apparently, nobody wanted to hear about it. None of the executives at the BBC wanted to give Jill the time of day. They certainly didn't want to see her evidence that she had collected against their organization, and it just went nowhere. Jill claimed that her investigation had led her to believe that big-name stars and BBC staff members were all involved in a predator ring. Keep in mind, this was in the 1990s. Jimmy Savile's death wasn't until the 2010s when the floodgates opened about the BBC. And sadly, nothing ever came of Jill's investigation. To this day, we don't know exactly what she found, what she had uncovered, and what she was planning on exposing. And as you know, she was murdered at the young age of 37. We don't know what happened to her files, and they probably were destroyed by this point. Who were these big-name stars that Jill was talking about, that she had uncovered connections between? Did Jill know too much? So much so that a lot of people wanted her dead? Well, Jill was shot at close range with a single bullet to the head, indicating that this may have been the work of a hitman. After all, it would be really risky for someone within the BBC to actually commit the crime themselves. So, hiring a hitman with no connection to Jill whatsoever is a very reasonable explanation. There are a lot of different theories as to who may have killed Jill Dando or why, but the existence of her secret investigation into the BBC predator ring that no one wanted to learn about or help expose is incredibly telling. It's like going to your boss and saying, hey, there are huge things going on at our company, and I have the proof that all of these people are committing all of these crimes, that all these people knew about these crimes and said nothing, and I would like to release this information so that we get as much bad publicity as possible. Obviously, they're not going to want to do anything with that. If they had some courage, they would, but did they take it a step further and have Jill Dando? We still don't know. I know where I sit on that issue. I think that that's the most likely explanation as to what happened to her, but to each their own. There's also the mysterious death of David Smith. David Smith was a former driver for Jimmy Savile and other BBC celebrities, and he was also charged during Operation Yewtree for a 12-year-old boy in 1984. According to authorities, David had taken the victim to visit the BBC studios in London, and he had him there, amongst other places. Authorities also discovered that David had previously been in trouble as well. In 1966, he had 22 convictions for against young boys. David Smith had previously been a paid driver for the private chauffeur company used by the Australian High Commission, who employed a number of convicted predators. He and other drivers from this company would pick up young care home boys and deliver them to organized predator in Barnes, Pimlico, and Kensington. The BBC also acted strange when David Smith was exposed. They publicly stated that they never found any record of David Smith being employed by or working for the BBC. But this was because the BBC hired him through a private company off the books and used this technical piece of information to make everyone believe he had no association with them. So they did actually employ David Smith just through another company. So they weren't directly hiring him, he wasn't on the payroll, but he was still being paid with BBC money, working for BBC stars, going to BBC sets and buildings. So why did they try so hard initially to distance themselves like that? Why wouldn't they just hire a regular driver with no previous convictions? Well, a month before David Smith was arrested, the head of employee tax at the BBC admitted that approximately 1,500 workers had been hired on a freelance off-the-books basis, which allowed them to cut some expenses. So who are all these people? They had 1,500 employees that, yes, they actually technically employed, like they worked at BBC studios and for BBC presenters and celebrities, and yet they weren't officially on the BBC payroll. What's up with the secrecy there? Why didn't they want anybody knowing who these employees were? Well, 2 victims waived their anonymity in an effort to give hope to others. Their names were Jason Little and his friend Lee Sullivan. Both accused David Smith of them when they were teenagers, and they accused the BBC of covering it up. Jason and Lee claimed that they had been taken to parties by David Smith and given drugs so that they could be by multiple men. When David Smith didn't show up for his trial in 2013, the police went to his home. But when they creaked open the old wooden door, what they found was disturbing. David Smith was dead. Dead before he could expose anything about his previous employer, Jimmy Savile, these parties, or any incriminating information at all. The coroner ruled David Smith's death as a self-unaliving of a combination of. Immediately, people were suspicious of the timing of David's death, literally in the middle of his trial. It's hard to accept that David Smith would unalive himself for the shame of being a predator, because he had already been living with that for decades. Why would he decide to unalive himself now? Murder cover-ups made to look like self-unalivings are not uncommon, as you already know. And there's so much more here. The BBC was 100% connected. I mean, all these predators and all these players were 100% connected to each other. But just like all the other elements in these stories, there's so much unknown. You hear mention from all these victims. I've read through so many testimonies of victims saying that they were taken to these parties once again with well-known individuals, powerful people, politicians. Who was hosting these parties? Who was putting these parties on? Who was organizing these parties? Was it Jimmy Savile himself? I think he played a part in it, but I don't know. I think that there's just something deeper here that has yet to be dug up and forced into the sunlight. It's really bizarre stuff. And if your workplace is infiltrated by as many child predators as the BBC was, from the late 1950s to the 2010s, you have a serious problem there. There is something like a magnet to metal pulling these sickos in to come work there. Maybe it's because they knew the right guy and they told him, you come work here, you can get away with almost anything. We know the places, we know the areas to get access, we have the access, so come on in. And they always end up being these children's presenters. Jimmy Savile with Jim Will Fix It, Rolf Harris. For some reason, it's these people that project themselves to be loving, caring, sweet on the outside, whether they're a church pastor or a teacher, when you find out later on that they were doing all of that just to get into close proximity with young children. And there are more deaths too. I mean, Jill Dando and David Smith are very intriguing, but there are also like unsolved murders and bodies that haven't been found and other whistleblower type individuals that, talked about stuff like this and they disappeared. If you want me to make another episode about all that stuff, I can too, maybe in a part 2. But the question remains, will we ever know the entire story behind the BBC Predator ring and Jimmy Savile? Well, probably not, given the constant cover-up stories and denials. But the information we do have definitely leads me to believe that something dark was happening, much further beyond just the simple of Jimmy Savile. He did not act alone, and I'm certain that there was a link between Jimmy Savile and many other predators, not just in the UK, but all over the world. I mean, imagine the access that Jimmy Savile had to all of these children and all of these institutions. He preyed on sick children in hospitals. He preyed on mentally ill kids in mental hospitals. He preyed on children that were fans of his, that watched his show. And Jimmy Savile had the goddamn keys to the kingdom. He literally could walk anywhere in those hospitals at any time and no one really questioned him. Oh, that's just Jimmy. He's heading down to the girls' ward late at night just to say hi and cheer everybody up. Sickeningly, we now know that that's not what he was doing. And a disturbing detail, actually, is that Jimmy Savile himself somehow got himself into the morgue. I don't know which hospital it was at, but Jimmy Savile was actually playing around with dead bodies. He was taking photos of himself with dead bodies. I'm sure, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, personally, I believe that Jimmy Savile was those dead bodies, but he was taking pictures with them, posing them, messing around with them. I mean, only God really knows the depths of the depravity of Jimmy Savile himself. I mean, he could have a whole damn episode, even excluding the BBC Predator Ring stuff. The guy was truly as sick of a human being as can possibly exist. I mean, there's really almost nothing this guy didn't do. And you know, there's allegations that there were children that died connected to Savile, kids that went missing. Those are all things that aren't necessarily a part of this story, but it's out there. Just look at the footage of Jimmy Savile's old abandoned houses, like the one in Scotland. It's so goddamn creepy to imagine those kids being taken out there. And who knows how far all these people went. I mean, you guys remember we did a Elm Guest House video a few months back talking about another elite predator ring that was functioning in London, England at the same time that this entire thing was developing and building. And there are links between that, obviously, and this and this and that. Also should be noted that David Smith, the guy who was found dead before his trial, he had worked for the same company as Sidney Cook, another serial predator and child that was functioning in England and hosting these parties for elite members of society that could pay to play. It's very, very, very obvious that Jimmy Savile did not act alone, and yet they still won't acknowledge that he didn't. The BBC narrative to this day, really, and you know, in a lot of pop culture, is that Jimmy Savile was this lone wolf, but you pull back the curtain and no lone wolf can exist without a wolf pack behind them. And these people would just fill the void in the darkness, and they were just waiting for those perfect moments to strike. It's sad that Jimmy Savile obviously couldn't have been brought to justice before he died, but I personally hope that his legacy will now be tarnished forever. And all these people, think of all the people that got away with these crimes. Think of the people that were at these parties that played a part in the victimization of these victims that will never be held accountable for what they've done and what they did. That should disturb you. The amount of people that walk all the time from charges like this. It's infuriating, and the more you know. That's the whole point of this show, is to teach people that these things do happen, and we need to be more vigilant, believe survivors, and pressure authorities to actually look into these things so that they're never going to stop happening, but we can stop them sooner and save more children.
Because if you want to catch paedophiles, and not just him, all of them, they're always enabled. 9 times out of 10 people know, and it's the people who sit in silence, they're as bad as he is.
So there are a lot of rumors online. I've done a lot of research into Jimmy Savile and the institutional cover-up. He's got links to a number of other famous criminals, including a man named Sidney Cook, who was an infamous pedophile ringleader in Britain at the same time that Jimmy Savile was abusing children, who allegedly also helped to finance snuff films. Jimmy Savile's also got connections to Peter Sutcliffe, a serial killer, very infamous in British history, known as the Yorkshire Ripper. He was good friends with a lot of other people who got away with their crimes, including Gary Glitter. Gary Glitter is a famous musician. You might know him because they used his song in the film The Joker, the 2019 movie, when the Joker's dancing down the stairs. Da-na-na-na-na. Hey! Da-na-na-na-na. That's Gary Glitter. And Gary Glitter was a child pornography collector. He was a serial child abuser, and he's never been repentant for his crimes. He was caught, he was arrested, he escaped, he got caught again, arrested, he got let out, he got caught again. The dude's pure evil, and of course he was close with Jimmy Savile. But there are also darker rumors about Savile, that he was involved in, let's just call it, occult practices. There is some really bizarre evidence out there that would suggest that Jimmy Savile not only was into these things, but may have been into some of the more hardcore aspects of occultism, like the sacrificing of humans, children to be specific. And I don't want to spread misinformation, and I don't want to make any allegations that have no basis in reality. But all I will say is that if you look, you will find the evidence. It is out there, and a lot of it doesn't really make sense unless you view it through the lens of a very dark lens. So to investigate, we decided we would head out to Jimmy Savile's former home out in the Scottish Highlands. It's really out in the middle of nowhere, and this is where he would have taken victims. This is where he would have done unspeakable things. There are rumors that there could be bodies buried in the immediate area, but we knew we had to head out there to see if the rumors were true ourselves.
So right now we have come in our investigation into the crimes of Jimmy Savile all the way to the Highlands in Scotland. So right now we're about 2.5 hours outside of Edinburgh, and in this area right here is the former manor home of Jimmy Savile. It is a very, very creepy place, and obviously lots of allegations surround this property. I have read online numerous reports, everything from children being brought all the way out here to this remote mountainous region in Scotland to be abused. And there are also some darker rumors that swirl around this property, like the potential for there to be the buried bodies of children around here. As we've spoken of, there are a lot of rumors about Jimmy Savile. Rumors that he was involved with, obviously, secret societies, but even further than that, one step above that, rumors that he was involved in these sort of more occult-influenced societies that believed in the ritual sacrifice and murder of humans, mainly children. There's tons of allegations that have floated about that Jimmy Savile himself was heavily involved in a pedophile ring, that he helped facilitate that pedophile ring through his connections, especially. It's proven that there was a high-level cover-up at the BBC, but we're hoping here in exploring Jimmy Savile's old, decrepit, abandoned home to be able to ask some questions and potentially get some answers, see if there might be a spirit out there. As always, with these sorts of investigations, they can at times be highly controversial, but I want to remind people at home that we believe in what we do here. We believe in these methods. We have used these methods for years, for more than a decade, in our paranormal journeys. So in doing a video like this, not only am I hoping to raise awareness surrounding these crimes and the victimization of children and the problem that is child abuse in our world today, because it is such a massive problem, but we're also trying to poke and prod this story to see if it has any validity, because there's so many rumors online, so many stories, so many anecdotes, but there's no hard evidence. So take everything that you're about to see with a grain of salt when it comes to evidence, because we're not claiming that we know this is all true. These are all just experiments. And we're doing this all in memory of those victims of Jimmy Savile's that no one would speak for back in the day, who we are trying to speak for now. It is illegal to visit this place, so we are gonna have to try sneak in and be as casual as possible. And without further ado, I think it's time. It's fucking freezing up here too. My fingers are like going numb already. Let's do this. You don't have your map up? Yeah, let's park right here and walk up. Look, you can pull all the way down there.
Here it is. Nice.
So, where we're standing right now, this is all that remains of Jimmy Savile's former home here in the Scottish Highlands. Now, I want you guys to imagine back in the day, if a child were to have been brought here, one of his victims, this would have been a home of horrors. This would have been a place where they were raped, where they were physically abused, potentially tortured, mentally abused, verbally abused.
and according to some, potentially murdered and buried in the Highlands area out back. So this is obviously one of the most notorious places in Scotland that I know for a fact they're planning on demolishing soon. I mean, look at the state of it. But this house, in an interesting twist, is actually a pretty historic home that was owned by another historic figure. So beyond Jimmy Savile, there could be a potential for a haunting here. But we're going to explore the property a little bit first before we start investigating.
Looks like there was a fire here. Look at this. Danger was here, aka Jimmy best pal.
Scott H. loves Jimmy. We miss you, Uncle Jim. Jimmy. Alright.
Going a full warning.
Oh my god, that wind.
Should we walk around back and see?
Be careful, Colin. You don't know. Is it water?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
So this is back behind Savile's house, and the theory is that people have proposed that Jimmy Savile may have murdered those children, committed a murder, or even covered up a death, and would have had extremely easy access to a vast expanse of wilderness where he could have disposed of this body where it would potentially still lie today. Jeff, you want to scan the SLS back here? So first what we're going to do is Jeff is going to sweep this area with an SLS camera, which some people obviously who believe in the paranormal believe can pick up what look to be stick figures, figures representing spirits or anomalies. So if he's able to pick something up back here, I don't know what to tell you.
I just died. I just completely charged. Wait a second. Huh? So what's happening? This was completely fine. Completely, fully charged. And as soon as I started to scan the tree area and into the building, it just went out. So it's like
you've been using it for like 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, F that.
I mean, like just from turning it on.
It's freaking dead.
It's interesting though, all this stuff around here. People seem to come up here to party. There's tons of alcohol bottles, wine bottles, graffiti. Just think though about how many kids, how many children were potentially brought out to this location. And at the same time, imagine what it would be like to be a child taken by who would probably have been their hero all the way out here to a beautiful, beautiful area. And then that hero turns out to be a fucking pure evil supervillain and you're trapped. And it's just like Epstein Island. It's just like North Fox Island. This is another sort of island where once the children are brought out here, there's no escape. There's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can run. There's no town around here. There's no big city nearby. If you're a child, the only place that you can escape to realistically is the road, which is a highway right here. And if you're a kid, you're not going to do that. You're going to be terrified. But this is what these abusers and these sick people in power do. They find locations like this to bring children out to where they know that they can't escape. They know that they can't really call for help. And it also psychologically works on the victim, the child, because it causes them to obviously lose all hope once they're here. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here, essentially.
Whoa. There was a big knock in here.
What? Oh, I heard that too.
A huge knock in here.
Yeah, a tunk.
Like loud.
Were you recording?
Yep. Oh.
Yep.
That was really creepy.
Let's go in that room.
Yes.
There's nowhere to stand in that room. Shine the light over here.
Let's walk over there a little bit. You guys can just sit here a second.
Can I have the...
I'm gonna go first on the phone up.
Creepy in here, man. Just imagine Jimmy Savile actually sitting right here by the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course, this thing's dead too. Jesus Christ.
Really?
This goddamn device is also dead. Look at it.
What's happening?
This is
I don't know.
There is horrible energy in this house.
Bizarre.
Drained everything.
What's going on?
God damn it.
There's actually a...
This isn't dead. This device is dead.
Yeah, I know that was completely charged.
I know. It takes batteries.
Yeah.
Brand new batteries. This is glitching out too.
They don't want us to be here. Something doesn't want us to be here.
Like, what the f is going on with this thing? What is it? What the f is this?
This is really weird.
Okay. It'd be interesting if we put this in the car before we get out of
We're here wanting to speak to any victims of Jimmy Savile or to Jimmy Savile himself. Is there somebody here with us right now? What the f? I didn't even touch it. It's just...
Yes.
Can you tell us your name if you're here? Bill? When have you ever seen a spirit box do this? Who are you? This is the weirdest shit. Do you know the name Jimmy Savile?
Yes.
You heard yes?
Yeah.
I heard it too.
For sure.
To whoever's here, before we start, can I ask you, did you die in this house or on this property? I've never seen this in my life before. Can you please let this go? Is your body buried near here? yes.
Yes again. I hear yes again.
Who killed you?
What the?
That's not some
Yeah,
footsteps.
there's a lot of creepy stuff here. Can you let that go? Okay.
Something's controlling.
What the f? This is the weirdest shit. Who killed you?
It's like everything's being silenced.
Can you say yes or no? Were you murdered here? It's a voice. This right here that I'm holding in my hand is a toy.
No.
This is a toy, a device, a tool that will allow us to speak with you, whoever's in here. Is there the spirit or the energy of a child in here? Should we run the DR60 while we do this?
Sure.
I got nanny when you said spirit of a child.
Nanny?
Like a nanny for the child.
Could he have employed like?
Huh.
No.
Oh, they wouldn't have employed a nanny. But...
Chaos.
Yeah, the
Chaos.
DR60.
Look at chaos in all of your equipment. Everything's
Chaos.
like
Chaos for sure.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Wow, that's kind of a creepy feeling.
Does Jimmy ever come back to visit this? No.
Is Jimmy in hell?
Do you know anything about where Jimmy Savile is right now?
He's being silenced.
Are you a child?
Ava.
Did you just feel
Colin.
a bang?
I got Ava.
Ava.
Child.
Is your name Ava? God, there's really bad energy in here.
It's, I think, the worst energy.
No.
It's not Ava. Are there bodies buried nearby?
Yes. Yes.
Maybe Ava's one of them.
Did Jimmy bury those bodies?
No. No.
He wouldn't have buried his own bodies.
Was Jimmy a member of some sort of secret group or cult that would have met out here? Should we go do the DR60 in that room?
Sure.
Watch. You have a light, so these nails, there's a few sticking up there. West.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Colin.
What?
I just got. Thank you for listening. Scream. Listen.
Really?
Yeah.
I could just go stand in the bathroom with the DR60. Okay, so we're in the bathroom of Savile's home right now. Potentially this could be an area where abuse really happened because, you know, abusers typically tend to target children, unfortunately, in the bath or in the shower. So we're gonna run a DR60, and this is an EVP device. and see if we can speak with anyone. If there's someone here with us, can you tell us your name?
Are there any bodies buried here on the property?
Can you tell us the name of somebody that lived in this house?
Can you tell us the name of the guy who owned the house?
Were children raped here?
How many kids were brought here?
Is this house evil?
For anyone here that was abused by Jimmy,
Yes.
do you know where he's at right now?
Yes. 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 Yes.
And finally, did a child ever die here?
Sounded like yes.
Sounded like yes, for sure.
Let's say house.
Yeah, it knows Jimmy Savile.
Synced up again.
Question, it said yes. I almost heard Jimmy Savile. That was the yes.
I swear on that one I heard Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, I thought you were going to play that over again.
I thought I did, but you're like...
No.
Are there the spirits of any children here on the property?
No.
Is Jimmy here on the property?
Are there bodies buried here on the property?
No.
I'm going to give you another chance to just say the name of the guy who abused you here.
No.
Was Jimmy Savile, or if this is Jimmy, were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult?
Can you tell me if Jimmy is in hell?
Yes.
Was Jimmy evil?
Jimmy was very famous for a reason. What did he do which made him so famous?
No.
All right.
It is stinky.
Yeah, it is stinky.
I think
It's like sewage.
maybe sewage that's not.
Yeah.
I mean, since there's no toilet, it's probably not capped off.
Are there the spirits of any children here on the property? No. Is Jimmy here on the property? No. Are there bodies buried here on the property? No. I'm gonna give you another chance to say the name of the guy who abused you here. No. Jimmy Savile? Or is this Jimmy? Were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult? Can you tell me?
What was that?
Was Jimmy Savile? Or is this Jimmy? Were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult? Can you tell me?
That was long.
Was Jimmy Savile? Or is this Jimmy? Were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult?
Yes.
Can you tell me if Jimmy is in hell? Were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult?
That's creepy.
I heard something Satan.
Was Jimmy Savile? Or is this Jimmy? Were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult?
Jimmy hurt me or
Tell me
something?
if Jimmy is in hell?
Yes.
Right there.
Were you into Satanism? Was he into the occult? Can you tell me if Jimmy is in hell?
Or he's there in hell. No.
Jimmy was very famous for a reason. What did he do which made him so famous?
I don't know.
Give this back to you.
Personally, I almost get the vibe that it's like Jimmy, or like there's some energy here that's just shutting stuff down in a weird way.
sure.
Not
I
even
mean,
trying to
all
be.
the equipment.
Yeah.
All the equipment dying and malfunctioning, silence, and even like was no right there. I was about to say, what the, like every answer, like was Jimmy here? No. Are they here? No. Are their bodies here? No. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Who would
It's
be
like-
doing that though?
Jimmy.
Himself?
I mean, he loved this place. This would definitely be a place where his spirit would return to. This was like one of
Also
his summer homes.
Strange. I mean, like he was very well off. This house is kind of like, I mean, obviously right now it's a shithole, but it's like, it's a pretty like strange house.
Yeah.
Was it more one of many homes he had?
This was one of his main ones.
It was, okay.
He was well known around here in Scotland.
Okay.
Should we see if this works in here, maybe?
Sure.
No.
See, there you go. It's actually weird.
Trying to see if I find it.
Are there any children here? Want to do Spirit Talker?
Sure.
No. Jimmy Savile, are you here? Can you say hello or hi? Jim, I swear. Maybe Jimmy doesn't want to talk to us, but can someone tell us if Jimmy's actually here? Yes. Can you say his name? Flashing?
Yeah, like if somebody got flashed.
She got the word flashing.
Devil's music.
Does Jimmy come back to this house? Okay, how weird is this though? This is working now. Yeah.
That is so weird.
What the actually? That's so strange. Maybe.
Guest. Did he say they were going to just be a guest?
Guest
Yeah.
at the cottage?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should do an Estes in here.
After exploring those buildings and investigating, you could practically feel the cover-up in the air. It's really interesting with a lot of these locations. I mean, we've investigated North Fox Island, we've investigated Midnight Productions, Connor and I have investigated Bohemian Grove. When you head to places like this, it seems like even in the realm of the spiritual, and with that energy that comes along with it, there's a sense of hush-hush in the air, whether it's victims that are still traumatized and afraid to speak, whether Jimmy Savile himself could be there at his former home that he loved so much, trying to keep people from talking. I don't know how all that works, but it's definitely a pattern in the evidence that you can see where it's very silent. Compared to all of our other investigations, it really seems like someone wants to say something, but they can't. But we knew we wanted to get to the bottom of this, and we knew we wanted to see every building on the property. So we decided to keep searching. We also decided to eventually do an Estes method.
It's so interesting to y'all to just be here because Savile was such a historical figure as well, like one of the most famous British people of all time. So to be in his old summer home or whatever you would have called this back then in this state and knowing what he did, it's just hard to believe, man.
It's also kind of crazy to see like the graffiti here. It's very like disturbing. Like people are like kind of making fun of what happened here too.
Yeah.
Which is very sad. I mean, nobody knows how many people, how many children were abused and sexually assaulted and raped in this building right here and probably even buried on this property. I mean, it's so disturbing to think of the gruesome things that happened here. Being able to come here, share this story, make sure that people never stop thinking about what happened here is the reason that we come to locations like this.
I missed our special weekend, Jay. P.S. when I was 7. This is eerie in here.
It's eerie?
Yeah, someone's like been sleeping here. There's like pillows on there.
You serious?
Almost looks like a little ritual thing. You see this?
Ew.
I don't even know if this was connected to Savile.
So this is another part of Savile's home and his property, but I think this is the area that was actually set on fire just 9 months ago because as you can see the entire floor is ashes. But just behind me is the remnants of a bed, an old bed spring, a mattress frame. I don't know if Jimmy lived in here, spent time in here, slept in here, but finding the remnants of a bed in a notorious pedophile's home is disturbing to say the least. Alright guys, so right now we are in the other building that's on Jimmy Savile's former property. There's a bed in the other room, so I actually don't know what this would have been. This may have been an important part of the home. Could have been guest lodging. There's a fireplace right there and a fireplace over there. So people definitely inhabited this area. It wasn't like a garage or something. But if you look at the floor, it's all ash. This is where that fire happened 9 months ago. Yeah, this kind of looks like a face or a skull. We're gonna do the Estes method now. I'm listening to the spirit box. You guys are gonna ask the questions.
Is there anybody here with us right now?
Take off, mate.
Is this Jimmy?
Are there any children here? Spirits of children?
Sure. 12.
I was gonna say how many.
Can you give
There.
us the name?
It was something that means a lot. Go.
Can one of the children that's here, could you say your name? One of the 12 children?
Little girl. Kind of a Scottish accent. Girl.
Okay, so the little girl, you can
But a
say
man's
her name.
voice.
Were children abused in this building?
Ew. Ah, Jim. Jim. It didn't say the but it was Jim.
Are we talking to Jimmy right now?
He's standing right there.
God, I just heard footsteps.
Yeah.
No, love, the
Definitely.
queen. I just heard that.
That's weird.
Jimmy, if you're here with us right now, I hope you're living.
Please stop coming.
I hope you're living a terrible afterlife. I hope you're rotting in hell and getting treated the same way that you were treating children.
Jimmy, did
Piss
you,
off.
Did you just walk up here in the gravel right here? Was that you? Was that where you're standing?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, what did you do to the children here?
Liverpool.
Up north.
In the hospital.
We did sick to them in the hospital.
Was he involved with Liverpool?
I mean, he was.
I'm sure he was.
Gotta go.
Known all over the place, all over the UK.
Oh, go away. Like that.
You don't want us here? You don't like that we're
No.
also exposing your secrets?
You think you're getting me?
Well, if this is Jimmy, you're already dead, so I can't really get you.
Sure. I don't feel anything.
Hello?
Hello?
Somebody out there?
Jimmy. France.
Jimmy, can you make a noise out there? Is that you out there, Jimmy?
That's my friend. Carl. Stop. Stop. Ugh, I don't know why I got like anxiety in my heart. Like all of a sudden. Like I just feel like something weird is happening. Go.
Are you standing outside? Is Carl out there?
Not so tough now, huh?
You can't hurt us because you're dead. Everybody knows you're a creep.
Mr. Trump.
I mean, I heard over there too.
Yeah. Are you trying to scare us right now?
Princes and kings. They'll get ya. It's literally a man's voice the entire time almost.
Are you still silencing these children?
The number 9.
You're scared of what they might say?
The order.
I'm also getting like anxiety.
Yeah,
I think this
for
this,
sure.
this is way creepier
Yeah.
than that whole
Yep.
place over
It
there.
is.
Is this building where the
He's
abuse
got a
used to
gun.
happen? Is this building where the abuse used to happen?
I swear, Damon.
Could have easily had, you know,
Lots of work needed.
that's their safe place over there for him, and they brought him over here. That'd make perfect sense.
What happened in this building?
Nothing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, tell us
Right.
the truth.
Yeah, what did you do here with the children?
Ugh. Finger.
Oh.
That's disgusting, man. Yeah, I think we gotta check here.
I mean, that was seriously like.
Oi, buddy.
What else did you do to the children?
We got bears. Oh, jeez. Is there somebody there next to us?
It's us.
Oh.
We heard noises behind you.
Behind you, yeah.
It seriously sounds like someone's like circling.
Walking around the building.
Okay, perfect. I'm keeping in. Okay. Open the door.
Where are you?
It's something out there.
Circling.
Help!
Yeah. Are one of the children here?
I live on.
So, are you walking outside the building right now? Are you walking around the building to scare us?
That's me, mate.
Is that Carl?
You said that again.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Bless the queen.
You were really good friends with the royalty.
No. I don't even know what direction I'm standing, but I'm feeling like
Yes.
there's like a
Yeah.
there's something here, man.
Yeah, there's something.
100%.
It's not on my right side. It's yes.
Exactly.
The jester.
Well, he was like the big funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, the guy.
Sure.
Asmodeus.
Were you doing satanic worship out here?
Off.
No, you off.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Are you trapped
piece of
here,
shit.
Jimmy, huh? Is that why you're pissed off? You're stuck in
Big fatty.
Well, you're a big douchebag.
Get him, Jeff.
Dumb.
Oh,
My
Big
gosh.
fatty dumb.
you.
Jeez. You're a loser.
You're a nonce.
Or I think it was daft. Daft.
Wow. Okay. You're a loser big time. You're stuck in hell.
Just
So-
wanting to help.
Yeah, right.
That's exactly what he used to say. That's how he got all the access to all the children.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Dude, I get a weird vibe that I'm like, I feel like there's somebody like with their face here.
Oh my god.
He's probably right here. So what do you want to be remembered for? Because you're remembered as being a
Who
terrible...
burned this?
We don't know. But I'm glad they did.
It opened it up.
I'm glad all your shit's getting destroyed.
Nope.
Yep. You're like one of the most horrible human
Go ahead and
beings.
pray.
You're way beyond prayer. You're like a sicko in hell.
Funny.
Yeah. Not too funny to all the kids you abuse, that's for sure.
I'm glad that even after death, people were able to come forward and expose you for the shit that you've done.
He'll attack.
Bring it. I'm not scared of you.
What about the kiwi? You should stop that.
Okay, there is
no,
something.
over here.
Something.
There's
I wonder
something
if you
over
have
there,
a-
you guys.
Powerful light, maybe?
This is so.
So on camera, I don't know if you guys can hear it. There's like someone walking here and then
The
walking
devil's
through the
here.
gravel. The what?
The devil's here.
God.
I don't know. I feel freaky.
Oh, this is terrible.
This is really way worse than the other
Oh my
place.
god.
No.
I'm gonna
I
pull
kind of
him
feel
out.
like we
Yeah.
will because I'm feeling
You're
anxiety.
evil. We're gonna get Colin out of here.
You're gonna stay
Yeah.
here. You cannot attach to any of us, anybody here, any of the children's spirits that are left here. Move on, please. Go to the light. Get away from this evil person. Don't let
There
him
is
talk
no-
to you anymore.
There
Yeah,
is light.
There is.
And you're not gonna be in it.
You're gonna stay here. Everybody else, you have to leave. He's an evil person.
99 bottles of beer.
Ugh.
Get him out.
Okay.
Jesus. God damn.
Yeah.
Dude, that shit was dark.
Creeped out.
There's something here, back there.
Dude, there's been movement over here and around the building.
Like literally, like
people walking.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And you said you felt something right
Yeah.
over there?
Right here.
There was a
Yeah.
huge noise
Yeah.
back there.
What was it?
Oh, we don't know.
We went with the light.
That's crazy though. We kind of started like telling off the spirits, and then you're like,
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, you were
Really?
arguing.
Yeah.
You were
No
arguing with
way.
them. You were arguing with them.
No way.
Like, we were like, and
God damn,
then
it
he
is
called
creepy
Daft
in here.
Fatty.
this is creepier than the other. Yeah, he called me fat.
100%.
Yeah.
A daft.
Yeah.
He called me that. But this is creepier than the other place. We all agree.
Oh,
Yeah, this energy is
Why?
horrible.
You actually feel like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
I thought we were thinking.
We were saying we
Yeah.
think this is where the abuse
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Well, the bed's over there.
Ugh.
Well, it makes sense because keep people secure over there. Nothing's going on. Bring an unsuspecting little girl over here.
It was
Easy.
all a man's
Sep-
voice for the most part.
Separated.
Wow.
Do you guys even want to look?
I
bed?
went and
Did you look and see the bed?
No.
wow.
Ooh.
Shine your light. Yeah, look at.
That's creepy.
I'm assuming this is Jimmy Savile's bed.
And this is where all the noise was coming from.
It really
Yeah.
was.
Isn't that weird,
Wow.
actually, that there's an actual bed here? I mean,
sleep on
think
it?
of how. I mean, this is all ash. It would have been way lower. Because who knows what this area would have been.
Because up here is this.
I mean, look at the security fence goes all the way up there.
Oh.
Weirdly
So
enough.
we're way down.
Weird.
God, like maybe this is like under the home, you know?
Yeah.
Basement.
Like a secret.
I don't know. This place fucking freaks. That place wasn't that freaky. This place
Yeah.
is freaky.
This place is evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at. This is like hollow.
This is kind of. I feel some movement, Colin.
I wouldn't bounce
Don't-
around.
Yeah.
No, I think we need to get out of here.
Yeah, it's-
Rat floor, like Jesus.
Jeez.
That bed is freaky as hell, though, huh?
Oh, come on.
At the end of the day, Jimmy Savile was an incredibly evil creature. And as you can see, hopefully, at the end of this video, there was an institutional cover-up of his crimes that was aided by the government, the entertainment industry in Britain, and by everyday people who turned a blind eye to Savile's crimes and his specifically crimes against children. Now, his house out in the Scottish Highlands, I hesitate to say that it's haunted, but there's definitely a presence there. There is a very heavy energy that you can not only feel in the air, but just look at that Estes session and what they were experiencing. There was something there, whether that was Savile, whether that was some sort of entity he played with, whether that's a completely different energy that comes from the Highlands that has decided to make this place its home. I don't know, but we got way more evidence and activity than I expected to. I hope you learned something today, because we're seeing a very similar thing play out in America right now with Jeffrey Epstein. We are seeing the people exposed that helped to cover these things up. We are seeing the communications exposed between Epstein and all these power players and captains of industry. We are seeing how a ring like this is allowed to fester for so long and have nobody say anything or raise any alarm about it. So just keep that all in mind. The world is a lot darker than you or I would really like to think that it is. It is unfortunate, but we have to remain the force for good. And we have to fight for good over evil and keep telling these stories and talking about these things and bringing them up so people don't forget. And so that hopefully, I mean, it's never going to stop, but hopefully we can see warning signs earlier and people will wake up and start speaking up and speaking out when they notice, something's not right. Anyways, y'all, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you liked this type of investigation, we've done a number of investigations like this on the channel. I will link them in a playlist, but have a great rest of your week. We'll be back next week with another ghost hunt, not a true crime video. But anyways, y'all, I love each and every one of you, and stay spooky.
Hello.